Hi you guys, this is Nerdy MJ and I'm here to talk to you guys about Pokemon XY version, which comes out next month and which, yes, I will be playing. Anyway, right now there's this theory that's been floating around the internet for a couple of months about Pokemon XY, and it's just full of holes. It focuses on 4 key aspects of Pokemon XY, one of which has not even been confirmed yet, and it just sort of leaves you hanging on the rest. Getting to the point though, the theory is that Pokemon XY is based on Norse mythology, and I am here to tell you guys that it is not true. It's bullcrap. Don't buy into it. It's just not true. I'll also share my theories with you guys later. First of all, though, I'm going to tell you about the Norse theory and what it focuses on. The Norse theory focuses on Xerneas, Yveltal, a mysterious legendary Pokemon that's rumored to be released in the sequel to X and Y, and a tree that we see Xerneas standing in front of in the Pokemon XY gameplay footage. And let's face it, there's about a 99.9% chance that that's just a regular tree that Xerneas just happens to be standing in front of. In fact, the theory sort of revolves around that tree. It is said that that tree is this ancient sacred tree of Norse mythology, whose name I will not even attempt to pronounce, and that Xerneas, Yveltal, and the mystery Pokemon that is rumored to be based off a serpent represent the different realms of Norse mythology. All that other stuff though that left people scratching their heads, fairy type Pokemon, Hone Edge, the sword based Pokemon, and stuff like that, is never mentioned. The theory stops there at Xerneas, Yveltal, and a mystery Pokemon that might not even exist. So now I'm going to share with you my theory, which I have researched extensively. In order to prove to you guys that I am probably correct, I'm going to start with a little history lesson. A long time ago in ancient Europe, France was not France. It was actually, in fact, the Celtic region of Gaul. That's G-A-U-L, like Paul with a G. So if you don't believe me, you can Google it. Anyway though, as a Celtic nation, the people of Gaul worshipped Celtic gods and goddesses and believed in Celtic symbolism, such as the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is seen numerous times throughout Celtic mythology and is internationally famous as an image of symbolism. But what does it mean? What does it represent? Well, boys and girls, the Tree of Life actually represents different Celtic clans. Every clan had its own sacred tree that was chosen based by appearance, breed, and location. They believed that different types of trees had different magical properties, and that if a clan's tree was ever cut down, then that clan would be rendered powerless. Symbolically speaking, though, the tree represents the balance and harmony prevalent in nature. It represents the balance of life and death, which is where Xerneas and Yveltal come in. Kind of. First, we need to learn more about Celtic mythology. Let's start with Cernunnos. Cernunnos is the Celtic god of life. He is the horned god of Celtic paganism, and in one of his most famous depictions, he is seen as an antlered man with torques hanging from his antlers. He has also been known to take on the form of a stag. Now let's move on to Morrigan, the Celtic goddess of war and death. Morrigan is depicted as a dark-haired woman and often takes on the form of a bird, usually a raven. Cernunnos was her consort, and she was said to help Arthur rise to power. The next thing we're going to learn about is a triple moon goddess Brigid. She is the goddess of the moon and healing, and is associated with smithing and takes on the form of a serpent. Next, we learn about the Fae. The Fae are described by the Celts as a diminutive race of people forced into hiding. The majority of folklore revolving around the Fae is about protection from their malice by means such as cold iron, which is like poison to them. They were believed to live in an other world, which is also associated with the concept of the Isle of the Apples, or Avalon. Wait a minute, Avalon, another King Arthur reference? How'd that get in there? I put it there. Why? Because I believe Pokemon XY is a story about Celtic mythology and Arthurian legend. That's why the next item we'll be discussing is Excalibur. Excalibur is the sword Arthur receives from the Lady of the Lake, an ancient Celtic water goddess and the high priestess of Avalon. The sword and scabbard were enchanted. The scabbard protected the owner from being mortally wounded, and the sword was said to be unbreakable. I wonder why all this is starting to sound familiar. I'll tell you why. Cernunnos, the Celtic god of life, takes on the form of a stag, and what is Xerneas? Ding ding ding, a stag. Oh, wait a minute though. What about those orbs we keep seeing in Xerneas' antlers? Well, remember earlier where I talked about the famous depiction of Cernunnos with the torques hanging from his antlers? The thing about the torques is actually important, because another part of the Norse theory is that the colored orbs we see in Xerneas' antlers are used to represent the 4 stags that dwell in one of the Norse realms. I believe that they are actually used to reference Cernunnos' more common humanoid form, and as a reference to his 4 roles in Celtic mythology: creator, destroyer, rebirther, and giver of life, all of which are more than suiting for a legendary Pokemon. Also, let's keep in mind the fact that Xerneas has also been confirmed as a fairy-type Pokemon, which will tie in later, I swear. For now, let's move on to Yveltal. Yveltal is a legendary dark flying type that was based off a bird, quite possibly a raven. I believe that it was given a dark typing because Yveltal represents Morrigan, the goddess of war and death, both of which are very dark matters, and its design is based off the form of a raven, which Morrigan took up often. Next, we have the fairy types themselves. They are weak against poison and steel types. Kind of sounds similar to that thing where iron is like poison to the Fae, doesn't it? I don't know, I hadn't noticed really. Now it's time to discuss Honedge. Honedge is the steel ghost type Pokemon whose design, quote unquote, seems to be based on a sword and scabbard which contains an ancient soul. The soul of King Arthur, perhaps? If you look at Honedge, you'll see that it is decorated with Celtic knotwork. And the ribbon we see dangling from the hilt of the sword is blue and covered with a flowing pattern similar to water. That is a reference to the sword's original origin and a nod to the Lady of the Lake, the Celtic water goddess. This now brings us to the rumored legendary snake Pokemon. This Pokemon is said to be a poison rock-type serpent. The rock typing was obviously set so that the Pokemon could defeat Yveltal without a problem, but it is also a reference to Brigid, the Celtic goddess of the moon and healing, because the goddess is also associated with smithing, as in stonesmithing, crafting objects from stone. Makes sense? Yes, I think it does. And last, we have the new player characters, or rather, their names. Let's start with the female player character, Serena. The name Serena, according to BehindTheName.com, means calm, serene. But more importantly than that, it was used by the obscure Saint Edward Spencer in his poem, The Fairy Queen. Wonder what legendary she's supposed to catch. This is yet another reference to Celtic mythology, as the Fairy Queen is mentioned numerous times throughout it and is a very important figure in that pantheon. You can find out more about it by Googling it. Now we're going to move on to Calum. The name Calum is a Celtic variation of the Latin name Columba, which means dove. This indicates that it is Calum's destiny to capture or tame the legendary Pokemon Yveltal and rise up to power as Pokemon League champion with its help, just as Morrigan helped Arthur rise to power as king. Xerneas represents life, the god Cernunnos, and is meant for Serena. Yveltal represents death, the goddess Morrigan, and is meant for Calum. And the mystery Pokemon represents healing, the goddess Brigid, and will rise to power in the sequel to Pokemon XY as a great and mighty serpent who will undoubtedly be nicknamed Slytherin by hundreds of Harry Potter nerds. That is my theory. Share it, tweet it, Google the facts, and tell me your thoughts on it in the comments below. This is Nerdy MJ saying, happy gaming.